Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this presentation and case study. We are here to share how we used component-based design to help solve some complex problems and made the Mold Inspection Science's new website project a success. I'm Jason Prothero. I'm the president of ProWorks Corporation. We are a gold partner. We've been using Umbraco since Umbraco version 4 around 2009. And I typically help with the strategy, solution planning, architecture, early stages of projects to ensure that they're a success and they work for all the marketing, content editors, as well as the developers and IT teams within organizations. We are based in Corvallis, Oregon, home of Oregon State University. Go Beavs.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Paul Sterling. I started working with Umbraco back in around 2006, version 2. It was definitely a different kind of CMS at that time. And then over the years, I created one of the first, but not one of the best, e-commerce packages for Umbraco called Commerce for Umbraco. I co-authored the Umbraco User's Guide. That was around version 4 with Nick Wahlberg from Scandia. And then I worked at Modus Connect. I worked at Umbraco HQ for 7 years. I've even worked with ProWorks as one of their developers for about a year. And I still work with them off and on whenever I can. And this year I was named an Umbraco MVP for the 8th time. And right now I'm the CTO at Mold Inspection Sciences and Mold Inspection Sciences Texas. We think about Texas and then everything else, kind of like a lot of people do. And then I live out in Bellingham, Washington, the city of subdued excitement. And it's also home base to Team Scriff. So if you know Janae, Kyle, and Erica, they also call Bellingham home. Yeah, cool. And what we do real quick is we just focus on science-based inspections for mold-like contaminants in spaces where people live and work, and we help people understand the steps they need to take to return their spaces back to a healthy state. Pretty much just what the name says. Yep. So when we started this project earlier in this year, we approached ProWorks and we had some specific goals. There are more than are on this slide, but the one big one that kind of overarched everything was we had a very legacy structure in terms of domains. So we had a domain for every market, essentially, like Mold Inspection San Diego, Mold Inspection San Francisco. And what we want to do is move to one domain, which is a much more modern approach where you have location pages rather than location domains. But of course, that presented some specific challenges, as you can imagine. And then were other goals too. We wanted to optimize our content structure. We wanted to optimize for SEO, and our editors were really challenged to create good content that looked consistently like our content. So I'll talk about that here in just a second. And then generally just wanted to modernize the sites. So some of the challenges, all the current sites, all 12 of them were running Umbraco version 7. And as you know, right around the time we're giving this talk, October, November 2023, Umbraco 7 has reached its end of life. So those need to be migrated to a more modern version anyways. But it's not a super straightforward migration, and those sites were originally migrated from WordPress, so they had a lot of legacy in them. Like I mentioned, this 12 different sites had a lot of different content structures, so there wasn't a consistent structure across the sites, and none of them were really optimized. So one of the first things ProWorks helped us do was figure out an optimized content structure that was going to be good for organic search, for SEO, for just making it easy for site visitors to find the content they were looking for. ProWorks also helped us define a redirect strategy because we had all these different pages that were now going to be, resolving to a totally different kind of structure on a different domain. There was quite a complex set of redirects that came along with the project. And fortunately, we're not going to talk about that today. And then like every other project, right, we had a relatively small team, not an unlimited budget. And so those were always challenges in who's going to do what. And then finally, the editor challenges I mentioned were really around the editors not knowing which we were using U components with version 7, and it's a great way to get a site up and running quick. But U components is a massive set of things you can use, and our editors didn't know which one was the best one to use. So we ended up with a lot of content that looked different from a lot of other content, and the editors weren't really excited about it because they found it kind of cumbersome to create things in the grid layout structure. Yeah, so those are our big challenges, and one anyways, I'll let Jason talk about how we went through and kind of solved those with what was the approach.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, so next I'm going to walk through the goals, challenges, and our approach to the new Mold Inspection Sciences website. So on a typical project,
Wrong.
yeah,
Sorry.
next slide, sorry.
I am okay, Jason. I don't
Oh
mean to
yeah,
step on your.
no, you're good. So on a typical project, ProWorks does the strategy, the design, the discovery, implementation, kind of the whole thing for a new site build. For this project, we had an opportunity to collaborate with Paul and his team because of his experience with Umbraco and our experience working with Paul. We've had some good experiences in the past, and so we had a good level of trust to start the project that way and involve them more deeply. So when Paul approached ProWorks about a site redesign, it was clear he needed help with the design and the content strategy and some things like that. And we felt that his team could they needed a system that they could build the content that they needed to build. From some of our past engagements, it was clear that they needed some flexibility to deal with some SEO concerns, try some things out, because organic SEO is very important for them. And they needed to have the ability to change and expand it into the future and not be too restricted by anything that we built. We also knew that Paul had the ability to manage sites, and we felt like we had a framework that we could use, that he could build on and extend it as we went forward. So these goals here were just our drivers, success metrics for the site build that we defined early on. And then next to the approach. So we always begin with a discovery phase with every project. So we're trying to understand user stories, personas, work through the design process, and make sure that everybody's on board, taking sort of small steps towards what we're going to build. And it was really important to nail down this design and content strategy up front, and set the stage for the implementation with the concept of components in mind, which we always do for a build these days. But it is especially important because we're going to be collaborating more on the implementation phase due to some potential budget issues, but also the fact that going forward, Paul may want to take this kind of in its own direction as the site goes live, and having new features and things like that they're going to need. From a collaboration perspective, so DevOps, automated deployments, continuous integration is always very important for ProWorks. It's a big story. We chose to use Umbraco Cloud for this particular, the hosting and the continuous integration DevOps setup. It is great for collaboration between teams. It gives us automated deployments, a repository for code deployment, and the workflow to deploy between environments. And it also helps us with post-deploy maintenance in that it can allow for automatic updates, either through a push button or even potentially for minor updates, kind of behind the scenes upgrades and updates. And it minimizes the amount of maintenance that needs to be done from the Umbraco system specifically, which is helpful for Paul's team because they're not a huge team. And so the less maintenance they can do, the better, honestly. And then component-based design. So that ProWorks' component-based design is a methodology for building websites that enables content editors to construct pages from a library of components or content blocks, is kind of the terminology that Umbraco uses. So Umbraco does make it easy to build these components. And as you can see here, there's a screenshot here on the right that's basically a sampling of some of the components that Mold Inspection Sciences has in their particular site, their particular implementation, and kind of has an idea of what the content editor is seeing as they're building the page, or maybe modifying pages, and the types of things that they could add and change, how it goes. Next, I'll walk through the benefits and how that works. So there are a lot of goals when building a website. So there's SEO goals, there's lead generation goals, there's performance goals, there's accessibility goals. There's tons of things. And frankly, as time moves forward, new things are being added, requirements for sites, such as, say, sustainability these days. That's another consideration. So I don't think it's going to get any simpler in any time, right? And so components support all of these goals. Unfortunately, from the content editor's point of view, typically that their experience, their editing experience, and how they actually work with the site is kind of an afterthought for most builds, actually. So we except for us, we typically pull that into the discovery. So it's very clear to the content editors what they're going to get once we implement the site, and they're on board with that before we even start implementing the site. And we really focus on trying to make it easy for them. And our favorite way, and the way that we work now effectively, is by using component-based design. And we feel like it's a very usable way to meet the needs of the website. And content editors just get it. It's simple, and they're able to have confidence and control over the content as they need. And so most of the benefits here listed, it's about being able to modify content, reorganize, create new content easily, and not have to be a technical content editor or have really any HTML, CSS experience to do it. So we really feel like it extends the lifetime of the website and the web design because it's flexible and can be modified towards the future. And effectively, what we're giving the content editors and these teams is a custom set of components, effectively like a site builder for their specific design. So it's very clear what each thing does, each component does. And it's not like they're trying to fit maybe a generic set of components into a design that was decided upon. The design is implemented first, then the components are sort of built from that design. So it's very specific to their design and custom. Okay, so how does this work? So here is a couple screenshots here. So on the left, you have the back office experience, basically. So these are the components that are stacked on each other in a list, and that's what composes the page. And then on the right, you'll see the home page. And you can see how these components directly relate, kind of a one-to-one relationship between each part of the page as you go down the page to the actual components that you see in the back office. And so these are sort of just an overview of, the descriptions of the components. But so they kind of stack on each other like Lego bricks. You can move them, you can reorder them to promote something up the page. Maybe that's more important, or you want to try out something. Or you can disable them to hide them, or even remove them completely. You can copy paste either one or an entire set of components from one page to another. So generally, they're fairly easy to work with, even once they're sort of set and you can reuse them. In addition, we have a concept of reusable components. So there's a library of components that are preset that a content editor could add to a page that's effectively going to be the same thing over and over again. So they don't have to keep copying it between pages or having to re-enter the content multiple times. And there's sort of one place they can edit it and have it change everywhere, right? So once the content editor, it wants to edit something or put in the initial content for a component. So it's pretty simple. Just click on the component, the title there, the box, and then a dialog comes out where they can edit the content for that component. So it's fairly structured. It is specific to this component. So there's title, subtitle, some links. So this is the hero for the homepage. And this is kind of an interesting example because typically a hero doesn't have this sort of contact information in the hero for most of the sites that we've worked with. But this is specific to Mold, and it was important for them to be able to have a really clear way to contact them at a really prominent area on the page. And so this is a new addition to this particular hero component that's different from any other client, and it's specific to their design. And so that's where sort of that custom components part comes in. So it's very clear where to edit it, and it's, you don't have to try to massage or wrangle some component that's not really meant to do it into what you want it to be. It's just how it is, and it just works. In addition, you can edit some basic design elements. So there's some customizability that can be built in. This could be things like themes for a component. In this case, the background color can be changed for the hero component to kind of vary it, or maybe change things to see if maybe something performs better, right? And then you can also disable components so they don't go away completely, but maybe they hide for a while, so you can bring them back. Maybe it's a seasonal sort of a thing or a special event, but you have it regularly, so you don't want to have it be removed forever. And there can be other, this is really customizable too based on the component. So some components may have different settings here that you can use to customize the design and give a little bit of variation between the same component, but on maybe different parts of the page or different pages to get a really different feel for the pages. So in summary, we believe that components and this component-based design is the perfect balance between flexibility and control for both editors, content editors, and the implementers. And so content editors get control over their layout. They get the flexibility to change their pages regularly, create new pages that perhaps have not been thought of before in a different combination of components completely. And generally, they're happier and more confident about editing and building out the site without being afraid that they're going to break something. We basically, as an implementers, from the implementer's point of view, we have control over the rendering and the markup. So we kind of set these guardrails for the editors so that they can have some flexibility, but they're not going to fundamentally break the design or accessibility requirements or mobile requirements, things like that. So all of those goals that we have to ensure for a website and a design, we can control that while giving some flexibility, quite a bit of flexibility to the content editors so that they can feel like they're able to be creative with their content and their site as well. In addition, components can be easily added for future if there's new requirements. And it does provide a common language for the editors and the implementers to kind of talk through what a component might look like. And it's just a little bit easier to communicate in that sort of common language.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to
Cool.
turn it over to
Thanks,
Paul.
Jason.
Yeah, you bet.
So I'll just kind of wrap it up here by, I mean, the outcome was, it was really a successful project. It was successful all around. The way that ProWorks and Mold Inspection Sciences were able to work together on the project was great. The fact that we actually launched the sites is great. Of course, the fact that they met their goals is great. In fact, it was such a success, and it was so easy to justify to my CEO that we already have a phase 2 on the books with ProWorks. Turns out everyone's kind of real busy right now migrating off of version 7, but soon enough, I hope that'll be done, and we can work on some phase 2 stuff, which is fun because that's the cool thing about components is you can just keep adding on when you want to, like Jason said. Anyways. Let's see. Yeah. So it's live. That's great. And in fact, we launched the first site, which was for what I call the non-Texas company. That's everything that's not Texas in August. And since then, it's just, we've seen a bump in our traffic and our conversions, which is how we measure leads. And just general content editor happiness. They've been creating more and better content, my totally subjective opinion, because it's just easier to do. They don't have to fight the system as much. I think our content editors actually think that we built this new CMS just for them, because that's what it looks like, because it's just got mold stuff in there. There's no other component stuff that we don't use, which is great. And you could, like I said, nothing bad about components. It's a great solution, but it wasn't right for us. Yeah. And like Jason mentioned, so we ran out of money before all the components were done on the project. And that's just, I don't know which project that doesn't happen on, but following the patterns that ProWorks had established, the way that the components were built and having already done the design up front, I was able to finish those couple components that didn't fit into the project budget. And so the project was complete, which is super nice. And not only that, I really enjoyed it. I mean, because it's kind of cool. Umbraco makes it, I mean, for lack of a better word, they make it easy to develop components. It's a nice system if you understand how to do it. I think the one thing that might be missing on the Umbraco side right now is just kind of a more prescriptive guidance on how you actually create those things, because it's you do have to connect a lot of dots to figure it out. But I had a pattern to follow, so for me it was not hard. Uh, and Just by restructuring our content structure into a more optimized structure, and by optimizing the way the pages are actually rendered so it's nice clean markup. And that's another thing that the components allow you to do, right? Is you have total control over the output. um, we've bumped our search rankings up dramatically, and I don't know how everyone else measures it, but we measure it using SEMrush, and they just have this position tracking tool, and we've seen our position kind of keep increasing relative to our competitors. Yeah, so that's great, right? It's a super small market. I mean, mold inspection is not something you really care about unless you have mold, so that's a finite number of people. It's just not that big of a market. And Like I said, just to close this slide off, uh, we are looking forward to the future, to a phase two, and likely even a phase three. And all of that will be changing a little bit what some of the components do, but mostly adding in new components, because now we see the capabilities we have to create engaging, interactive type content. Anyways, massive success all around. Kudos to ProWorks for really knocking this one out of the park. Everyone on my side is I've heard more kudos from this one project than I think I had in 5 years combined prior. So we'll just say that. And then for some numbers, just to give you the proof, this is the first, I think, yeah, about the first 30 days of the non-Texas site. So we saw almost a 300% increase in our users and our traffic, and almost a 400% increase in our conversions, which is really good because we're measuring our organic search conversions, essentially people that find us and contact us. That's a lead for us. So that's a nice number. So we just get that kind of for free, I would say. We don't pay anything extra to be an organic search, but just that the site is better structured. So that's pretty cool. We had one day, you can see that one little blip there. That's where reCAPTCHA was off for some reason on one of the
Mhm.
forms. So we got one day where we got a lot of leads. Anyways, and then interestingly, about, well, just 2 weeks ago, we launched the Texas version of the site. And that one's even more drastic of a difference. Over a 500% increase in users and traffic, over a 400% increase in events. And then we measure conversions in Texas differently using a different tool, not Google Analytics. Um, but we've also seen about a 400% increase in conversions there, and that continues on as we go and the site becomes established. And a lot of that's just the fact that we can create good content and not have a poorly structured for SEO purposes site. Yeah, and then finally, just more on the actual site structure side. The before site was the older version 7 site, and it wasn't the worst site out on the web, but it definitely was not where we wanted it to be. And one of the success metrics that we talked about with ProWorks initially was targeting a score of 90 or better across page speed insights. And you can see, and we definitely nailed it. And this is before even all the optimizations were in place. So at one point we were near 100 across all four of the kind of the main categories, um, and that's great. So we nailed that success metric. I mean, I've personally never worked on a real site. You can do it on a sample site, but on a real like live website that's like near 100 for page speed insights. So this one actually did it, which was super cool. And I'm positive that also helps our search ranking. Anyways, it's a little bit lower than this in reality because we have some other scripts, some analytics stuff, some ad tracking, and some web chat kind of things that we've added in. So of course, all of that does bring it down a little bit. But if we look at the baseline, which is just the site, it's a significant improvement. Yeah, and Not that that necessarily has anything to do with components, but we don't end up polluting our site with a lot of unnecessary code. We'll put it that way. Right. So that was it. Like I said, huge success. Kudos to ProWorks, and I'm looking forward to phase 2 with them soon, I hope. And that's all I have.
Great. Oh, great results. Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the work.
It was a great project. It was a lot of fun. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. If you would like to speak with ProWorks to learn more about component-based design and how it can help you, please contact us at contact@proworks.com. Or you can visit our website at proworks.com and connect with us there. There's a contact form on the bottom and kind of read a little bit more about us there as well.
Cool.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, and if, all of you who need mold inspection, you know where to find us. So
That's
just
right.
search.